I can report this noon that Detroit police do have at least 3 new leads in their search for the man who attacked Nancy Kerrigan. And one of those leads is taking investigators across the Detroit River to Canada. Sources are telling Eyewitness News that Kerrigan had received a number of letters from a man in Ontario. Now, these letters were not particularly threatening in nature, but the man seemed to have a fixation on Kerrigan. And she and her coach apparently didn't take the letters too seriously. They didn't think that she was in any danger. Our sources are telling us that Detroit police are investigating the letters. They're trying to locate the man in Ontario to see if he could have been involved in this attack. Officially, Detroit police will not confirm the existence of the letters. They will not comment at all. But Deputy Chief Benny Napoleon, who's heading up the investigation, did confirm moments ago the existence of a second lead. They have identified a brand new witness in this case.
Well, we have uncovered a eyewitness who gave us a very good description of the assailant. We are checking into that information right now, and we're trying to locate the assailant in this particular attack.
There's some personal security that's been assigned to Ms. Kerrigan. There's security from the hotel, and certainly there are more police officers in the area. In light of the fact that the man is still on the loose, it makes it much more important that we do that.
Now, TV2 has gotten more information about the new witness they have. We've been asked to withhold it at this time because the sensitive investigation, it's in a very sensitive stage. We also have information about a third lead police are looking at, but we've been asked not to report on that at this time either because police are trying to follow up and see if they can get closer to the man who attacked Nancy Kerrigan. Now, there are rumors that somebody actually got videotape of the man responsible for the attack. The police have heard that too. They're trying to find out if it's true, and if so, get a hold of this videotape, compare the pictures with the information from the new witness. Reporting live from downtown Detroit, Scott Lewis, TV2 Eyewitness News.
Yes, Scott, there were reports yesterday also that the man himself was taking video of the skaters on the ice. Is that true?
We don't know if that's true or not. They have so many witnesses with so many conflicting accounts and different descriptions of the man. They're trying to sort it all out. But I think by the end of this day, Sherry, we'll have more information on all of these leads, and we'll be able to give people a lot better idea of where police are going in their investigation.
Okay, Scott, thank you very much for that live report. Scott Lewis at Detroit Police Headquarters, and of course we will have much more on that later today on First News and Eyewitness News.
I was just really upset and hurt, angry. It's hard to explain. I just really wanted to skate when I'm sitting still.
But a vicious attack here in Detroit is keeping Olympic hopeful Nancy Kerrigan off the ice. Eyewitness News has learned that police have a new witness and new leads tonight that may help them track down Nancy Kerrigan's attacker. We've also learned what type of weapon was probably used. TV2's Scott Lewis has been in front of the story all the way today. He continues to break news tonight. He begins our team report from police headquarters. Scott?
Sherry, it's been more than 24 hours since this awful incident happened. Detroit police still don't know who attacked Nancy Kerrigan, but they do have a couple of promising leads they're following. Initially, witnesses thought that the man attacked Kerrigan with a tire iron or a crowbar. Now it appears that he may have been using a tool that some police officers carry on their belts.
Someone was running by me and he just whacked me with this long black stick.
TV2 has learned that police have a new witness who claims to have been less than 5 feet away when that attack happened. The witness says the black stick Kerrigan just described was a telescopic rod. This is the type of weapon described by the witness. It's called a retractable rod, and it's very easy to conceal. You can slip it right inside a pocket. It's used by police officers for defensive purposes, but if it gets into the wrong hands, with a simple flick of the wrist, it becomes a dangerous weapon. You just turn it around, and it's heavier than a wooden baton. And to make it concealable again, you just tap it on a hard object, and it closes up. The expandable baton is sold in police magazines, and it comes in 3 different sizes and weights. The new witness insists the man who attacked Kerrigan was black, but there seems to be some confusion, and police say they're still operating under the assumption that he's a white man.
At that time, we didn't have information from Nancy Kerrigan herself. One of our investigators have interviewed her and has determined that it was a white male.
It was a white male.
White male, as Nancy says.
As TV2 first reported, police are trying to locate a man from Ontario who wrote 2 very unusual letters to Kerrigan. They were not threatening, but he seemed obsessed with Kerrigan, and there were strong sexual overtones. Kerrigan says the fan letters were very strange,
it was very
but she
nice.
cast doubt on whether this is the man who
strange.
attacked her.
So I didn't write back, and I usually send pictures back to my fans. And the next year, he was disappointed and said that he was, kind of disappointed that I didn't write back. But it was nothing threatening.
Police today retrieved a tape shot by a network sports crew just before the attack on Kerrigan. They hope the cameras might have caught a glimpse of the suspect who was in the spectator seats just before the assault. During her news conference this afternoon, Kerrigan said she heard a noise just before the man hit her. A source familiar with this retractable baton says that it could have been the sound of the baton expanding. It makes a clicking noise, something like pumping a shotgun. Finally, a couple of points about security. Detroit police were not in this area of Cobo where it happened yesterday. The Ice Skating Federation was in charge of security, and they did not want the Detroit police there. Today, things were different. The police were welcome. Detroit police officers were all over Cobo and Joe Louis, and they were also providing some personal security for Nancy Kerrigan. Reporting live from downtown Detroit, Scott Lewis, TV2 Eyewitness News.
Yes, Scott, a quick question. We know that the attacker used the weapon, whatever it was, to knock out the window as he was leaving. Could you use this sort of baton for that sort of a thing?
No question about it, and police have no absolute confirmation that it was this type of expanding weapon, but they think it was something along this line, quite possibly this. The window that the attacker knocked out, Jerry, was made of plexiglass, so if you hit it hard enough, it just pops right out of the frame, and that's what happened. So very definitely this baton could do that.
Okay, Scott, thank you very much for that update.
TV2 has learned that police and the FBI are investigating the possibility of a conspiracy in the attack on champion skater Nancy Kerrigan. That's our top story tonight. New information about the investigation of that bizarre beating that Kerrigan took at the National Figure Skating Championships at Cobo Arena. Detroit police have no comment, but TV2's Scott Lewis has learned that not only are investigators looking at a possible conspiracy, they've interviewed the woman who won the national championship, Tonya Harding. Apparently, investigators want to know if someone wanted to benefit from the attack. Scott has exclusive details.
As Nancy Kerrigan arrived back home in Boston, still limping slightly from the bizarre attack, a possible motive emerged in Detroit. The talk in skating circles is of a conspiracy, a deliberate plot to get Nancy Kerrigan out of the competition to benefit another skater. There's widespread belief that the person who clubbed Kerrigan on the right knee was not a crazed fan, but someone with connections to the sport.
Well, from what we hear, the person seemed to have had a credential and have been in the area where only skaters and coaches are allowed. And also the fact that they aimed for a part of her body, which is really critical in performing in this sport.
Another source close to the skating competition says, quote, "I think it has a lot to do with a conspiracy. They think this might have been a plot. The investigation seems to be centered around Tonya Harding. The question is whether someone clubbed Kerrigan to boost Harding's chances." TV2 contacted Tonya Harding by telephone in her room here at the Westin Hotel. She declined to do an on-camera interview about the assault on Nancy Kerrigan, but Harding did confirm that she's been contacted by the FBI. Asked whether anyone who supports her could have been involved in the assault, Harding said, "I have no idea." Harding, considered one of the most powerful of all women skaters, has been on a comeback. She had a disappointing performance at the last Olympic Games and did not even make the world team last season. Harding won the competition in Detroit after the injury to Kerrigan. One witness who was close to the assault says this is the type of club that was used on Kerrigan. It's an expandable baton, commonly used by police for defensive purposes. Investigators are now studying this videotape, hoping to identify the man involved. The tape, shot by a sports crew from Chicago, shows Kerrigan pulling open a curtain as she walked off the rink. The camera caught a glimpse of the suspect behind the curtain. In Detroit, Scott Lewis, TV2 Eyewitness News.
Well, Scott contacted the FBI and was told it was improper for them to comment on any interviews done during the course of an ongoing investigation. They will not confirm nor deny our story.
She's a top figure skater attempting to come back, but today she and her associates could be one target of a probe into an attack on one of her competitors. TV2 was the first news organization in the country to report that Tonya Harding has been questioned by federal agents looking into last week's assault on Nancy Kerrigan at Joe Louis Arena. TV2's Scott Lewis broke that story last night at 11. He joins us now with more. Scott.
Well, after Nancy Kerrigan was attacked at Joe Louis Arena, Tonya Harding delivered a strong performance to win the competition here. But before she left Detroit, Harding got a visit from the FBI. Federal agents and Detroit police investigators are trying to find out whether a supporter of Harding's might have been involved in the attack on Kerrigan. Why? That was the question Nancy Kerrigan asked just seconds after the assault, and it's a question Detroit police and FBI agents are still trying to answer. As TV2 was first to report last night, investigators seem to be focusing on the possibility of a conspiracy. They're trying to find out if someone intentionally knocked Kerrigan out of the competition to further the hopes of another skater. As part of their investigation, FBI agents questioned the #1 skater in Detroit, Tonya Harding. As she arrived back home in Portland last night, Harding was tearful over her victory, and she downplayed the significance of her meeting with the FBI.
Yeah, I talked to him.
Okay.
I mean,
And
why not? I have nothing to hide.
Exactly. So you did speak with them, and you feel good about the conversation?
Oh, yeah. I mean, why shouldn't I? I mean, they talked to everybody, and they're doing, a thorough investigation to try and find the man who did it.
The FBI will not say whether they talked to other skaters. They will not even confirm their interview with Harding. They say it's against policy to comment on an ongoing investigation. Tonight at 6, we'll break some new ground on this story. We'll be able to tell you a lot more about where this investigation is focused, and we'll have an exclusive interview with a man close to Tonya Harding who says he may be under suspicion, but he had absolutely nothing to do with the assault on Nancy Kerrigan. Buell?
Thanks, Scott. We'll be watching tonight at 6.
She was the top skating star in Detroit, and now investigators wonder if her supporters played a role in a vicious attack. TV2 was the first in the country to report suspicions of a conspiracy in the assault of Nancy Kerrigan. Now the investigation has reached a new level. The FBI telling TV2 it is not just assisting the Detroit police anymore. The Bureau has found grounds to open its own investigation. TV2's Scott Lewis broke this story, and tonight he has learned more.
That's nice.
A teary-eyed Tonya Harding was greeted by fans as she arrived back home in Portland, ecstatic over her victory, but still looking ahead.
I'm really happy, but it won't be a true crown until I get my chance with Nancy, and that'll be Olympics, and let me tell you, I'm going to whip her butt.
Harding also talked about the attack on Nancy Kerrigan and downplayed the fact that she has been questioned by the FBI.
I mean, they talked to everybody, and they're doing, a thorough investigation to try and find the man who did it.
TV2 has learned that the FBI is focusing in part on this publication, the Tonya Harding Fan Club newsletter. The agent who questioned Harding reportedly had a copy in his hand and asked a lot of questions about it. Joe Heron is editor of the newsletter. He says the FBI might also be interested in him.
I don't think it would be any major focus, but I think perhaps they're just trying to figure out if I'm some wacko that would go back to Detroit and try and injure one of Tonya's competitors. Of course, I'm not. I wouldn't do anything like that.
Heron is a Vietnam veteran, a former Portland TV news reporter, and a close friend of Tonya Harding. He's now unemployed and shares an apartment with Harding's father in Portland. Heron claims a Portland newspaper columnist, Julie Vader, gave his name to Detroit police while she was here covering the competition. Vader once accused Heron of threatening her.
And she also made reference to articles in the newsletter, the Skater newsletter, which she said were slams against Kerrigan, against the figure skating establishment, and against the media.
Heron claims the skating establishment and the media have long been biased against Harding because she comes from a poor background. His latest newsletter has numerous references to favoritism for Kerrigan and bias against Harding.
She would skate at a level of excellence that would not be reflected in her marks. She would be uninvited to tournaments that she was perfectly qualified to be in so that other more favored people would not be upstaged.
Heron claims the world of figure skating is like a beauty pageant where people who criticize get retaliation. He says that's what's happened to Tonya Harding.
People can only endure this sort of thing for so long before finally having something to say, and now that something is said, all of a sudden people run to the police and say, well, you know, this must be the guy who attacked Nancy Kerrigan. Or at least check him out.
TV2 talked by phone today with Oregonian columnist Julie Vader. She says Heron made a threat against her because he was angry about a story she wrote. She says she didn't go to Detroit police. They came to her asking questions about Heron. And Rich, that's when she told them about the alleged threat.
Yeah, Scott, another strange twist. You were telling me earlier today that Tonya Harding also has received a death threat.
It happened last November before a competition out in Oregon, and she dropped out of the competition. She said she received a threat over the phone, and police checked into it. They weren't able to trace the source of the threat or even confirm that it happened, which can be difficult with a telephone threat.
Yeah, well, we haven't heard the last, obviously. After our satellite interview, by the way, with Joe Heron today, he walked across the street to Portland FBI headquarters to ask agents why they're interested in his newsletter.
Our top story today, TV2 has learned there could be a major break soon in the investigation into that attack on Olympic figure skater Nancy Kerrigan. TV2 has confirmed investigators are looking into allegations that skater Tonya Harding's husband, along with her bodyguard, arranged that attack. Harding's husband, Jeff Galooly, told the Oregonian newspaper, quote, "I wouldn't do that. I have more faith in my wife than to bump off her competition." But TV2 has learned a Portland, Oregon minister told investigators he listened to a tape recording of Harding's husband, her bodyguard, and another person plotting to injure Kerrigan. The bodyguard, Sean Eric Eckerd, says, quote, "I would never get involved in anything like that. That would be jeopardizing my future, my career. I mean, that's not something I could do or allow." Now, there's no indication today that Harding herself knew anything about the attack. This is her response to the latest accusations.
No one controls my life but me. I mean, God already wrote it out for me as how it's going to be, but if there's something in there that I don't like, I'm going to change it. I just wish people would see that, you know, I'm out there trying just as much as everybody else is. And it's just really sad. It's sad that there's that kind of people out there.
She skated to the top here in Detroit. But tonight, two people close to Tonya Harding are the target of an FBI investigation. New developments in the investigation of the attack of figure skater Nancy Kerrigan. Sources now confirm that the FBI is close to making arrests in the case. TV2 broke this story of a possible conspiracy in the Kerrigan case in a nationwide exclusive report on Monday night. This follows an investigation that has been underway since last week's assault in Detroit. And as we reported then, investigators have been looking into people close to national champion Tonya Harding as possible suspects. Tonight, we know those suspects are Harding's husband and her bodyguard.
I don't have any comment. Sorry. I don't have any comment to that.
Portland Minister Eugene Saunders may not have anything to say on camera, but he reportedly told the FBI he heard an audio tape of Harding's husband, Jeff Galooly, her bodyguard, Sean Eckhart, and a third man from Phoenix, Arizona, discussing a plot against figure skater Nancy Kerrigan. Private investigator Gary Crow says Reverend Saunders told him what was on the tape, though Crow says he has not heard the tape himself.
Gene explained to me that Sean was approached by Harding's husband and asked to put him in touch with someone who could do some sort of bodily damage to Nancy Kerrigan. So, at that point, Mr. Eckhart complied.
Crow also said Reverend Saunders told him the tape made it clear that Tonya Harding knew nothing about the plot. Both Galooly and Sean Eckhart deny any involvement whatsoever. And last night, Harding told a Portland TV reporter she doesn't understand why anyone would want to discredit her.
You know, I worked my butt off for this, and if anybody wanted to, you know, beat Nancy, it was me. Who wanted to compete against her the most? It was me. And of course I'm going to cooperate. I mean, I don't have anything to hide, and I want the person to be caught as much as anybody else does.
Now, as we said, TV2 reporter Scott Lewis was the first journalist in the country to report the FBI had questioned Tonya Harding in the attack on Nancy Kerrigan. Scott is in Portland, Oregon. He joins us now live via satellite as we continue our team coverage. Scott, I know you just arrived a short time ago, but what have you been able to find out? What's the latest in the case?
So far, Rich, there are no arrests here, but our TV2 camera crews and crews from Coin TV are strategically placed all across the city of Portland in case something breaks. The FBI has been saying all day that there might be a news conference today. So far, no news conference has been scheduled. I think what we have to keep in mind at this point, these are only allegations. These are only suspicions of the police in Detroit and the FBI that these people are involved in some kind of plot. Sometimes having suspicions of something and having enough evidence to bring charges are two different things, quite different things. And it is safe to say that the FBI has not wrapped up its case to the point where they can move in and make any arrests. So that's the situation at this hour. No news conference scheduled. So far, no arrests in the case.
Scott, with Tonya Harding's husband and bodyguard being linked, the allegations linking them to the case, is there any new information or any indication to what exactly Tonya Harding may have known about this incident?
We don't have any information on that yet at all, Rich, whether she knew about it or not. We also should point out that the FBI, it's our understanding, is still trying to check out the story of the minister. And at this point, they haven't been able to locate this audio tape where supposedly they were having this discussion, plotting to try to get Nancy Kerrigan out of the competition. I think it's safe to say that the FBI has some investigating to do yet, and I think that the final phase of the story, naming names, broke before the FBI was ready for it, and I don't think that the investigation was quite culminated. So it's possible that there may be some time delay before they move in and make arrests in this case, if they do at all.
All right, Scott, thank you very much. I know that we will be hearing more from you tonight on our newscast at 11 o'clock.
There can be no charges filed this evening.
No charges yet, but the targets of the Detroit police and FBI investigation in the Nancy Kerrigan case include Tonya Harding's husband and her bodyguard. And despite the lack of charges, TV2 has learned much more about the investigation. We had the tales of the conspiracy theory, the one that TV2's Scott Lewis broke here in a national exclusive on Monday night. Our sources say that conspiracy allegedly involves Tonya Harding's husband, Jeff Gillooly, her bodyguard, Sean Eckhart, and two yet unnamed people. Tonight, we have team coverage from around the nation, Detroit, Portland, Oregon, and Boston, Massachusetts. We begin with the man who has kept TV2 viewers a step ahead of everyone else. Scott Lewis joining us from Portland. Scott, what have you learned tonight?
I don't have any comment. Sorry. I don't have any comment to that.
He won't talk with reporters, but this 24-year-old Portland minister, Eugene Saunders, apparently did talk to the FBI through a third party. He reportedly heard a tape-recorded conversation in which a plot to kill or disable Nancy Kerrigan was discussed. Saunders went to this private investigator, Gary Crow, who reported the conversation to the FBI.
It was a meeting here in Portland between Tonya Harding's husband and the bodyguard, Mr. Eckhart, and a man from Arizona that Mr. Eckhart had contacted to do this job.
The private investigator did not hear the tape recording himself, but he says the minister gave him two specific quotes from the recording.
One was one individual saying, why don't we just kill her, Nancy Kerrigan.
And that individual?
I'm not going to go into who was who. The other individual said, we don't need to kill her. Why don't we just hit her in the knee?
Crow cannot explain why the alleged conversation was recorded or why it was played for the minister, but he says Eugene Saunders came forward out of religious convictions. A spokesman for the FBI here in Portland says the alleged tape has never surfaced.
So does that lead you to believe there is no tape?
Yes, that would lead me to believe there is no tape.
Portland TV station KOIN also got an anonymous letter talking about a plot involving Harding's husband, her bodyguard, and a Phoenix hitman. But neither the letter nor the reported tape recording suggest any involvement by champion skater Tonya Harding.
There was no mention of, my wife asked me to do this, or like in any way she was aware of this alleged conspiracy.
None whatsoever. Name never came up.
All day long, reporters and camera crews here in Portland have been camped out at the homes of the major figures in this investigation, waiting for an arrest. So far, no arrests have happened, but TV2 has learned that Tonya Harding's bodyguard, Sean Eckhart, has confessed to investigators about his role in this incident. We've also learned that the hitman tried to get to Nancy Kerrigan in Boston, but he got snowed in and he couldn't get to the arena where she was practicing, so he followed her to Detroit. TV2 has also learned that the weapon used in this incident was recovered behind Joe Louis Arena. As Eyewitness News first reported, the weapon was a retractable police baton. It folds up like a telescope to be easily concealed. Here in Portland today, reporters caught up with some of the people who brought evidence to the FBI.
All right, Scott, thank you very much. That report from Portland. By the way, Scott's going to stay in Portland, stay right on top of this story. He will have more for you tomorrow, and he will stay there just as long as it takes to continue following this story for you.
This is TV2 Eyewitness News at 11.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Rich Fisher.
I'm Hugh Perkins. Our team report on the Kerrigan case moves back to Detroit now, where Detroit police faced the media just a short time ago. TV2's Kathy Walsh is at police headquarters now. Kathy, what did police have to say?
Deputy Chief Benny Napoleon says police will not have any arrests tonight, Huel. He says they've been working all day with Detroit FBI, Phoenix FBI, and the Portland FBI, but as yet they still cannot go out and make any arrests in this case. But he does say they are working well together and things are going smoothly. Napoleon refused to confirm that the weapon had been found near Joe Louis Arena or that there are even 4 suspects. But he does say the investigation is right on track.
It appears at this time, however, that there can be no charges filed this evening. People have been interviewed by the FBI. The contents of those interviews will not be shared at this point.
Has the weapon been found? Was the weapon found at Joe Louis Arena earlier today?
We are not in a position to discuss that matter at this point either.
If suspects are arrested, they are expected to be charged under the Federal Hobbs Act. It's a law that deals with interstate commerce by extortion, robbery, or physical violence. But legal experts tell us this is an unusual application of the law. It's usually used when there has been an organized crime hit. So the big questions tonight are who will be charged, when will they be charged, and where will all this take place? So we will stay on top of it. Obviously, Detroit police say they hope to have more for us tomorrow. They kept us waiting about 9 hours today, hoping to have more information, but this is such a sensitive case that they've been very careful about what they've been able to confirm or deny. Reporting live from Detroit Police Headquarters, Kathy Walsh, TV2 Eyewitness News.
Very quickly, Kathy, there are all sorts of rumors flying, but we're hearing rumors that the arrests could come as soon as tomorrow.
That's what we're told as well, but again, we thought they'd be today, so who knows?
Okay, thanks for that live report.
And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Catherine Lahan. My partner, Sherry, has the day off. Our top story this noon, arrests may be made possibly as early as today in the attack on Nancy Kerrigan. TV2 was first to report that authorities were investigating allegations of a conspiracy involving supporters of skating champ Tonya Harding. Well, we've now learned that charges are expected against 4 people. Jeff Gillooly, he's Harding's husband, Sean Eckert, Harding's bodyguard, and the alleged hitman, and then another person. Now, there are new developments in this story from coast to coast today. TV2's Scott Lewis, who's been out in front of this story since the very beginning, starts out our live team coverage now from Portland, Oregon. Scott?
Catherine, the latest information here in fog-shrouded Portland is a rather intriguing meeting between Tonya Harding's bodyguard and the FBI. It happened yesterday at a suburban Portland restaurant. We're told that the bodyguard, Sean Eckhart, met with 2 FBI agents. At one point, he got up and went into the restroom with one of the agents. When he came out, the FBI men left. Then Harding's husband, Jeff Gillooly, came in. The 2 sat together for a while, then left. We don't know exactly the significance of that meeting. One can only read between the lines. Other than that development, it's a waiting game here in Portland. For the second day in a row, camera crews are staking out the home of Tonya Harding and her husband, Jeff Gillooly. But they apparently aren't there today and may be staying with someone else. So far, Gillooly has not surrendered to authorities, nor has he been arrested or charged. The other central figure here, Harding's bodyguard, Sean Eckhart, has not been arrested either, but has reportedly confessed about his role in the alleged plot. Minister Eugene Saunders reportedly heard a tape-recorded conversation about the scheme to attack Kerrigan, but the FBI so far has not been able to locate that tape. Sources say the hitman, allegedly hired by Harding's husband, tried to get to Nancy Kerrigan in Boston but got stuck in a snowstorm. So he followed her to Detroit to carry out the assault. Sources say the weapon used was found outside Joe Louis Arena. As TV2 was first to report last week, the weapon was a telescopic baton, commonly used by police officers.
Our team coverage of the very latest information begins now with TV2's Scott Lewis, who joins us from Portland. Scott, what are you hearing?
Well, Catherine, the county sheriff here in Portland is saying that there will be a number of arrests here, possibly as early as this afternoon. He says those arrested will be charged with conspiracy to commit assault. Now, we heard from the deputy police chief in Detroit, Benny Napoleon, earlier this afternoon that there are still jurisdictional questions to be ironed out. We could have charges also coming out of Detroit. very possibly what could be happening is that there will be conspiracy charges filed here in Portland and actual assault charges filed in Detroit. Meanwhile, here in the Rose City, there are indications that one key figure in this scandal has decided to play ball with the FBI. What was apparently a clandestine meeting between the FBI and Tonya Harding's bodyguard took place yesterday at this restaurant in the Portland suburb of Clackamas. Waitress Debbie Heumann says the bodyguard, Sean Eckhart, came in first all alone.
Came back and sat down here where I am now, and I just went up to him. I said, "Are you Tonya Harding's bodyguard?" And he says, "No comment."
Heumann says Eckhart was joined by 3 FBI agents. 2 of them went into a men's room with the bodyguard on 2 different occasions.
One of them stood guard this time. It looked like one of them stood guard this time, so no one would go in there. And they were in there for quite a while this time, and then they came out, and he sat back down, and they went over and had lunch.
After the FBI men left the table, Tonya Harding's husband, Jeff Galooly, showed up.
So he came over and seated himself?
Yes, he did.
Okay, and they sat together for how long?
Just a brief second.
And we're gone?
Yes.
The meeting gives the appearance that the bodyguard was cooperating with the FBI in their investigation of Harding's husband. This afternoon, reporters from across the country are staked out at the Justice Center here in Portland, waiting for arrests to happen. Reports out of Boston say investigators have now implicated Harding herself in the scheme. But Tonya Harding's stepfather says he believes she's clean.
I really don't believe that she's got anything to do with this, because I think she wanted to compete against Miss Kerrigan at the U.S. Nationals. I really don't think that Tonya would jeopardize her career on something like this when she really didn't have to. She has the talent.
If Tonya Harding's husband and her bodyguard had anything to do with it, I think she knows, and she doesn't seem to have any remorse over it. She seems too self-assured that she's going to win anyways, and now she knows that if she competes, she's going to win because Kerrigan's out of it.
Now, TV2 has also learned the identity of the 2 alleged so-called hitmen in this case. They are identified as Shane Stant and Derek Smith, both of the Phoenix, Arizona area. And we are told that authorities think Stant has now fled to California. Again, to summarize, there are no arrests here yet in Portland, but the county sheriff says arrests are imminent. They could come as early as this afternoon. And finally, a note on how Detroit police and the FBI got onto this alleged scheme. Benny Napoleon, the deputy chief in Detroit, said this afternoon he got a phone call from a woman from the Portland area. Now, we've learned that the same woman wrote this letter to the TV station where I'm broadcasting from, KOIN-TV. At first, the people who run the newsroom thought it was a hoax. They put the letter in a drawer. But after TV2 broke the story nationwide that investigators were looking at a possible conspiracy centered around Tonya Harding, they realized that this may actually be the people that were involved in hitting Nancy Kerrigan.
Did she or didn't she? New questions tonight about Tonya Harding's involvement in the attack on Nancy Kerrigan. Authorities here in Detroit and in Portland deny it, but a Boston television station is still reporting that a warrant has been signed against Tonya Harding in the Nancy Kerrigan conspiracy. This is known. 2 men are in custody in connection with the attack. We begin our coast-to-coast team coverage in Portland, Oregon with TV2's Scott Lewis. Scott, of course, broke the story of the conspiracy in a national exclusive report last Monday night. Scott, what's the latest?
Rich, sources are telling us that the 2 people in custody here in Portland are Sean Eckhart, who is Tonya Harding's bodyguard, and Derek Smith, who is the alleged driver of the getaway car outside of Joe Louis Arena. Now, we are told that the FBI called Smith in Phoenix, Arizona today and told him to come to Portland. When he stepped off an airplane here, he was taken into custody. At least 2 people are still not under arrest. They are Jeff Galooly, who is Harding's husband. We are told that he will turn himself in likely sometime tomorrow. And Shane Stant, he is believed to be from Portland, and Stant is the suspected hitman, the man who is believed to have hit Nancy Kerrigan in the knee. He is also believed to have fled to California. And from information that we've been able to develop here in Portland today, Stant is not the only man who was approached about being the hitman. Rusty Reitz of Portland says 2 days before the attack on Nancy Kerrigan, he was approached about doing the job. He says the man who asked him to be the hitman was Sean Eckhart, Tonya Harding's bodyguard.
He had asked me if I would kill somebody for $65,000. And I said no. And he asked me, then he asked me if I would break somebody's legs for $65,000. And I said, Sean, I'm not that way.
Reitz attends the same college as bodyguard Sean Eckhart and several others associated with the Kerrigan investigation. He says the offer was made when he went to Eckhart's home to get a homework assignment.
It was embarrassing to listen to him talk because his stories were just so bizarre and outrageous that they're just too hard to believe. So I just blew it off.
But after seeing news reports of the attack on Kerrigan, Reitz went to the FBI. There are indications the bodyguard is cooperating with the FBI. He was seen meeting with 3 agents at this suburban Portland restaurant yesterday morning. Twice he went to the restroom with 2 of the agents.
One of them stood guard this time. It looked like one of them stood guard this time, so no one would go in there. And they were in there for quite a while this time, and then they came out, and he sat back down, and they went over and had lunch.
Later, witnesses say Tonya Harding's husband came into the restaurant. He and the bodyguard left, raising speculation the bodyguard was helping the FBI get information. A lot of people in this city of 500,000 are upset over the skating scandal. They say it's tarnished one of their few sports heroes. They have NBA basketball here, but that's about the extent of it. There is no pro hockey, baseball, or football. So when Tonya Harding burst into the skating scene as a teenager, she quickly became the hometown hero. And she has been a big sports figure here ever since.
We'll go down to the skating rink and watch her skate. And, it's sad to see, but facts are facts. So I think justice will be served when they get the truth.
To me, I think she's a wonderful skater, and she's proven herself time and time again. And from what I've heard about her, she's just a all-right person, period.
Again, a Boston TV station is reporting that Tonya Harding has been tied into this conspiracy. So far, TV2 has no independent confirmation of that. We are continuing to work this story, and obviously there are a lot of unanswered questions yet. But 2 people have been arrested here in Portland, including Tonya Harding's bodyguard and the alleged driver of the getaway car. At least 2 more arrests are expected.
Dramatic developments today in the Nancy Kerrigan beating case. Our team report tonight takes us coast to coast from Boston, Kerrigan's hometown, here in Detroit, where the attack happened, in Phoenix, one suspect's home base, and Portland, Oregon, where the alleged plot was hatched. We begin with the first reporter in the country to break the news of a possible conspiracy, and that reporter was TV2's Scott Lewis, who is now live in Portland. Scott?
Rich, the story here in Portland tonight is 2 down and 2 to go in terms of arrests in the bizarre plot against Nancy Kerrigan. This was the scene just moments ago at the Justice Center in downtown Portland. Sean Eckhart, Tonya Harding's bodyguard, sitting in the front of a police car under a barrage of camera flashes from news photographers. He was being brought in to be booked on a charge of conspiracy. As TV2 first reported earlier today, Eckhart is one of 2 people arrested in Portland. Derek Smith of Phoenix is the alleged getaway driver in the Nancy Kerrigan assault. The FBI asked him to come to Portland, where he surrendered and was taken into custody as he got off an airplane. The second man arrested is the central figure in the plot, Tonya Harding's 26-year-old bodyguard, Sean Eckhart. Eckhart operates a company called World Bodyguard Services out of his parents' home in Portland, but his credentials are questionable. His resume lists extensive training on everything from counterterrorism to advanced surveillance techniques. But the instructor who taught legal classes Eckhart attended at a Portland area college believes few of the claims.
And then when he started talking, I mean, I was hearing stories that were pretty outlandish.
Eckhart also listed Executive Security International School of Colorado on his resume. It turns out he was suspended last year for failure to maintain satisfactory progress. And the school president says Eckhart had, quote, a James Bondian fantasy about himself. Acquaintances say the young bodyguard has a reputation for boasting and attention-seeking.
I'm not surprised. I mean, in fact, when I saw him on TV, I said to myself, well, I guess he's finally gotten his notoriety.
Sean Eckhart also has a criminal history. He pleaded no contest in 1988 to a charge of soliciting a prostitute. He was sentenced to 1 year of probation. A classmate says Eckhart asked him to do the hit on Nancy Kerrigan just days before the assault in Detroit.
He asked me, would I kill somebody for $65,000? And when I said no, he asked me if I would break somebody's legs for $65,000. And I said no. And he said, well, I've got a hit in Detroit. And I guess I'll just have to send my team.
Tonya Harding's husband, Jeff Gillooly, who allegedly hatched the scheme against Kerrigan, is expected to turn himself in the near future. And Shane Stant of Phoenix, the man who allegedly clubbed Kerrigan on the knee, may have fled to California. TV2 has uncovered evidence connecting Derek Smith, the alleged getaway driver, to other main suspects in this plot. Phone records show that since November, Smith has made 27 phone calls to Sean Eckhart's father in Portland, where Eckhart operated his business, and he made 15 calls in that time period to Jeff Galluli's mother in Portland. This story is continuing to unfold, and TV2 will continue to follow developments here in the Northwest. Reporting live via satellite from Portland, Scott Lewis, TV2 Eyewitness News.
Tonya Harding and her ex-husband are not off the hook yet. New reports tonight suggest they may have helped plot the attack on Nancy Kerrigan. Fast-changing developments tonight in the Nancy Kerrigan case. Sources telling Eyewitness News that two suspects that have implicated Tonya Harding and her ex-husband, Jeff Galluli, as having taken part in the conspiracy. But it is still not clear if and when they will be charged. The two suspects who implicated them are Sean Eckhart, Harding's bodyguard, and Derek Smith. Both were slapped with conspiracy charges today in Portland. Meanwhile, Smith's nephew, Shane Stant, the alleged hitman, surrendered to police today in Phoenix. We have live team coverage beginning in Portland with TV2's Scott Lewis. Scott?
Rich, the district attorney here has a reputation for playing things by the book, and he was pretty tight-lipped when he left his office about an hour and a half ago. He wouldn't say whether Harding and her husband have been implicated in the plot. All he would say is that warrants have not been issued against either one of them at this point. Well, here's the story on three others who have been charged in this case. In a downtown Portland courtroom, Tonya Harding's burly bodyguard, Sean Eckhart, was charged with conspiracy to commit assault. Reports say he's confessed to arranging the hit on Nancy Kerrigan, but he pleaded innocent in court. Outside the courthouse, Eckhart's attorney said his client is remorseful.
He feels dirty, you know? He feels that what he did was wrong. And that's why he went to a minister in the first place.
Why did he not plead?
Yes, he is worried about Nancy Kerrigan.
Mr. Smith, you have anything to say about the charges?
The man who was allegedly recruited by Eckhart to be the getaway driver at Cobo Arena also pleaded innocent to conspiracy. He wasn't talking, but his father was.
Oh, he wouldn't do something like that. You know, we raised him better than that.
And the man who allegedly whacked Nancy Kerrigan in the knee turned himself into police in Phoenix. 22-year-old Shane Stant is expected to be extradited to Portland as early as next week to face charges. Stant is the nephew of Derek Smith, who allegedly drove him away from Cobo Arena after the assault. Before moving to Phoenix a few months ago, Stant and Smith lived near each other in the rugged mountain area of Corbett, 30 miles east of Portland. Former neighbors described them as survivalists who like to dress up in camouflage outfits and play army. This is the composite sketch Detroit police put out from witnesses' descriptions of Kerrigan's attacker. And this is the photograph of Shane Stant, who was arrested for the assault. Tonya Harding and her ex-husband surfaced briefly today. The AP snapped this photograph as they headed out to meet with their team of 4 attorneys. Later, their lawyers issued this statement. Tonya and Jeff have cooperated with law enforcement officials and are in daily contact through their lawyers with the district attorney's office. No arrest warrants have been issued for either of them. In a few days, Tonya and Jeff will have a more detailed statement to present. Again, the district attorney here will not confirm or deny that other suspects in the case have implicated Tonya Harding and her husband in this plot. But he said as he was walking out the door that he expects this to be a very long weekend. Reporting live from Portland, Scott Lewis, TV2 Eyewitness News.
Scott, are you hearing anything at all about any possible plea bargaining with the suspects at this point?
No, we haven't heard anything about that, Rich. All we know is that there's a lot of conversation going on back and forth between the 4 attorneys who are working for Tonya Harding and her ex-husband and the district attorney.
All right, Scott, thank you very much. I know you'll stay there until we get to the bottom of this. Tonya Harding is skating on ice, getting thinner by the day. Prosecutors now say they have enough to charge her in the attack on Nancy Kerrigan. But they're not ready to make a move just yet. TV2 confirms that prosecutors in Oregon say they have enough evidence to charge Harding, but they still want more. TV2's Scott Lewis first broke the story of the conspiracy, and tonight he exclusively reports it's unlikely any of the suspects will be charged in Detroit.
TV2 has confirmed that Oregon prosecutors think they have enough evidence to charge Tonya Harding in the conspiracy, but they're waiting for more evidence, concerned that the case wouldn't hold up in court. A source close to the investigation says other suspects in the case have implicated Harding, but their credibility is low. So prosecutors want other evidence tying Harding to the plot, and so far they don't have it. The grand jury in Portland has until February 3rd to issue indictments, and it appears they are at least a few days away.
There's just no testimony in the Harding case before the grand jury.
Why is that?
Can't say.
Do you have any more information on Tonya Harding possibly being arrested?
No comment on it.
Meanwhile, Wayne County Prosecutor John O'Hare is still reviewing the case, but a reliable source tells TV2 the chance of anyone being prosecuted in Detroit for the Kerrigan assault is slim. Detroit prosecution is doubtful, the source says, for 3 reasons. Jurisdiction problems. The prosecutor in Portland doesn't want to give up any of the defendants to Detroit. Cost. Flying defendants and witnesses to Detroit for trial would be very expensive. And redundancy. The conspiracy charge in Portland carries the same penalty as assault in Detroit, so there's no advantage to prosecuting here. Prosecutor John O'Hare flatly denies any jurisdiction problems, saying all agencies involved are fully cooperating. O'Hare goes on to say there are some good reasons for prosecuting the case in Oregon, but the decision has not been made. The time will come to look at the practical considerations. As Tonya Harding continues training for the Olympics, she issued a new statement denying any involvement in the Kerrigan attack. But she continues to be dogged by speculation. A published report says Harding once talked about bumping off her former husband, Jeff Gillooly, because he stole her pickup truck. But the report had no names, quotes, or documentation. Harding also has her supporters, and they seem to be increasing in number. Reports say membership in her fan club has nearly tripled to more than 400 people since the attack on Nancy Kerrigan. In Southfield, Scott Lewis, TV2 Eyewitness News.
Tonya Harding has a severe case of asthma. A doctor who treats her free of charge says she may have set her training schedule back a couple of weeks by smoking cigarettes during the stress of these accusations.
Figure skater Tonya Harding says that she's sorry her chief rival was attacked during this month's figure skating championships in Detroit. But in her first official statement since her ex-husband was arrested, Harding admits that she knew of the plot soon after it was carried out. Meanwhile, TV2 has learned that the Kerrigan investigation has now moved back east to the state of Pennsylvania. TV2 Scott Lewis joins us now from the newsroom with the very latest on that, and also Harding's statement to reporters in Portland today. Scott?
Catherine, Tonya Harding finally talked in Portland today, saying something of substance for the first time, as investigators there are reported to be closing in on her. Harding's ex-husband, Jeff Gillooly, is apparently trying to cut a deal with the FBI to implicate her in exchange for leniency for himself. Now, reports out of Portland say that Tonya Harding's arrest is imminent. Harding was choking back tears at times today as she said she is embarrassed and ashamed that anyone close to her could be involved. She insisted she had no prior knowledge of the plan to assault rival Nancy Kerrigan, but Harding did admit that shortly after returning to Portland from Detroit, she learned that people close to her might have been involved, and she kept quiet about what she knew.
I have since reported this information to the authorities. Although my lawyers tell me that my failure to immediately report this information is not a crime. I know I have let you down, but I have also let myself down. But I still want to represent my country in Lillehammer, Norway, next month.
Tonya Harding gave no indication of what kind of information she initially withheld from the authorities. Now, her husband, her bodyguard, and 2 others have been charged in connection with the assault. Meanwhile, TV2 has learned that the Kerrigan investigation took another turn today back east to the Keystone State of Pennsylvania. We're told the investigation there has to do with phone calls that Harding allegedly made to Nancy Kerrigan's practice arena in Boston. FBI agents are questioning someone in Westchester, Pennsylvania this afternoon. It's not clear whether that person actually took the phone call or merely was able to overhear it. Now, TV2 is continuing to work on this part of the story. In fact, we have some new information coming in right now. And also, you will be able to hear Tonya Harding's statement in its entirety coming up on First News at 4:30.
TV2 has learned about a major new turn in the investigation of Tonya Harding. TV2's Scott Lewis broke the story of a suspected Harding link to the attack on Nancy Kerrigan. In fact, broke the story nationwide tonight. Once again, he leads the way on this ever-developing story. Scott?
And this is a real new twist, Rich. We've learned that authorities are reopening the hit-and-run death investigation of Tonya Harding's half-brother, Chris Davison. Now, Davison was convicted of sexually assaulting Tonya when she was 15 years old, and he was put in jail. Shortly after his release from jail 5 years ago, he was the victim of a fatal hit-and-run car accident. Now, that case remains unsolved to this day. Also today, TV2 has learned that investigators are far from letting up on their probe into Tonya Harding's involvement in the Kerrigan attack. And now it seems there is a Pennsylvania connection. Tonya Harding practiced today in Portland. Part of the investigation shifted to Westchester, Pennsylvania. The focus is on phone calls that Tonya Harding allegedly made from Portland to Kerrigan's practice rink in Boston. Investigators believe a plot to hit Kerrigan there had to be abandoned. TV2 has learned the FBI is interviewing a woman in Westchester, Pennsylvania, who apparently has knowledge of the calls. It's not clear if she actually overheard them. This afternoon, Tonya Harding fought back tears as she finally commented directly on what she knew and when she knew it. Harding said she knew nothing about the plot when she returned to Oregon after the assault in Detroit.
I was exhausted, but still focused on the national championships. I'm really happy, but it won't be a true crown until I get my chance with Nancy, and that'll be Olympics, and let me tell you, I'm going to whip her butt.
But in the days that followed, Harding said today she did learn that people close to her might be involved.
My first reaction was one of disbelief, and the disbelief was followed by shock and fear.
Harding says she didn't go to the police right away, but her lawyers are telling her that what she withheld is not a crime.
I know I have let you down, but I have also let myself down. But I still want to represent my country in Lillehammer, Norway, next month.
Late this afternoon, the U.S. Olympic Committee said it is deeply concerned with the statements made today by Harding. The committee said the Figure Skating Association has appointed a committee to investigate the Kerrigan attack. Harding's name is being placed on the Olympic roster, but she could be pulled at a later date, depending on what the investigation turns up. And as I said at the top of this report, investigators have now broadened their investigation of Harding well beyond the scope of the Kerrigan assault itself. They have reopened an investigation into the fatal hit-and-run killing of Harding's half-brother, who was convicted of sexually assaulting Tonya and went to jail. The former fiancé, that half-brother once remarked, "Whoever was at the wheel, it was no accident." Now, Tonya herself once said to a high school classmate that if she ever had to kill anyone, the way to do it would be to run them down. Rich?
Just an incredible new twist in this case. It seems to be changing by the hour.
And tonight at 11, we're going to have more details on this phone call and this lady in Westchester. They're just coming in now.
All right, Scott, thank you very much. This is a story, of course, that we keep learning more about every single day. And as we just mentioned, now it seems to be changing by the hour. January 6th. An unknown attacker smacks figure skater Nancy Kerrigan in the knee. January 13th, Tonya Harding's bodyguard, Sean Eckhart, and a man named Derek Smith are arrested. Shane Stant, the alleged hitman, was on the run, but not for long. January 19th, Tonya Harding's ex-husband and live-in boyfriend, Jeff Gillooly, is charged and arrested. And then today, the case moved even close to Harding, and the evidence came from Harding herself.
I had no prior knowledge of the planned assault on Nancy Kerrigan. I am responsible, however, for failing to report things I learned about the assault when I returned home from nationals. Many of you will be unable to forgive me for that. It will be difficult to forgive myself.
Despite that statement, the heat is on Tonya Harding. TV2 has learned that investigators have stepped up their probe, not only into the possible role in the Kerrigan attack, but also, get this, into the unsolved death of Harding's half-brother. Reporter Scott Lewis was the first reporter in the nation to report those close to Harding were allegedly involved. Tonight, he has more exclusive information. Scott?
Rich, making the Olympics may still be the dream of Tonya Harding tonight, but it's hard to believe that she doesn't have many other things on her mind. TV2 has learned investigators are again looking at the hit-and-run accident that killed Harding's half-brother. It's a case that's gone unsolved for 5 years. Tonya was only 15 years old when this video was taken by a student journalist. It was the same year Tonya was sexually assaulted by her half-brother, Chris Davison.
He's like my mom. He doesn't have a lot of money, and he goes out and he gets drunk and then gets in fights and stuff.
Davison was convicted and sent to prison for the sexual assault. 5 years ago, he left prison on work release. He was soon killed by a hit-and-run driver. Shortly after Davison died, Tonya told high school friend Jenna Dumas if she ever had to kill someone, the way to do it would be to run them down, because even if you were caught, they would never put you in jail. And from Bonnie Mobley, Davison's fiancée at the time of the hit-and-run, whoever was at the wheel, it was no accident. In light of the Kerrigan conspiracy, investigators have decided the hit-and-run case is worth another look. The investigation of the Kerrigan assault itself has now widened to the state of Pennsylvania. The FBI is questioning a woman who lives in Westchester about phone calls Tonya Harding allegedly made to Nancy Kerrigan's practice rink in Boston from Harding's home in Portland. Investigators allege that an initial plan to assault Kerrigan in Boston was dropped. It's not clear what role they suspect the Westchester woman might have played in the Boston attempt or in the assault that did take place in Detroit. Today, Harding insisted she only learned of a plot after she got back to Portland, and she pleaded for a chance to compete in the Olympics.
I have devoted my entire life to one objective: winning an Olympic gold medal for my country. This is my last chance.
Ironically, Harding's admission may have done more to harm her with Olympic officials than anything that's come out so far. This afternoon, the United States Figure Skating Association created a panel to investigate, a first step that could lead to her removal from the Olympic team.
There are requirements within the United States Figure Skating Association which have to do with sportsmanship, the association you have with other athletes, and basic fairness at the highest levels.
Now, after TV2 first aired this story tonight at 6, the Portland Police Department faxed us this news release. Nowhere in here do they deny that they are taking a second look at the hit-and-run accident that claimed the life of Harding's half-brother. They do say there is no evidence that Harding or any relatives had any involvement with the incident.
From Detroit's Westin Hotel and Westchester, Pennsylvania, tonight, new information suggesting Tonya Harding is not coming clean. TV2's Scott Lewis, who first reported on the conspiracy, has been breaking new developments every day. And tonight, Scott has exclusive information that, if proven by authorities, might mean the end of Tonya Harding's Olympic dream. Scott, what's the latest?
Rich, until now, it's been only her bodyguard and her ex-husband pointing the finger at Tonya Harding. But now authorities, we've learned, are looking at information in Detroit and Pennsylvania that could corroborate their story. The information seems to fly in the face of Harding's public statement.
I had no prior knowledge of the planned assault on Nancy Kerrigan.
That's what Tonya Harding said yesterday, but new information uncovered today by TV2 raises questions about whether the skating champion is telling the truth. As everyone knows by now, Nancy Kerrigan was assaulted January 6th at Cobo Arena, but sources say the people involved first considered attacking Kerrigan at her room in the Westin Hotel. And we've learned Tonya Harding herself may have found out which room Kerrigan was staying in. Sources say she asked a hotel employee who gave her the room number in violation of hotel policy. And there's more, suggesting Tonya used a friend in Pennsylvania as an innocent dupe to find out when Kerrigan was practicing near Boston. TV2 has obtained phone records showing numerous calls between the Harding home in Portland and this home in Westchester, Pennsylvania. The Pennsylvania home belongs to Vera Morano, a reporter for Skating World magazine. The calls were made in late December while Nancy Kerrigan was practicing at Tony Kent Arena near Boston. Investigators say the conspirators also tried to hit Kerrigan there, and they believe that Morano, in the phone conversations, may have unwittingly given Harding information about Kerrigan's practice schedule. But a skating coach who knows both women says the calls might have been innocent.
I guess her only involvement with Tonya is possibly she was setting up an interview with her at some point, and somewhere down the line maybe they had communication as to maybe she knew Nancy's schedule. You know, anything's possible. Anybody can get information in that kind of light.
Vera Morano had no comment when TV2 reached her by telephone, and she had nothing to say when a reporter from our sister station in Philadelphia went to her house.
What if we don't go away towards Boston?
Late this afternoon, Eyewitness News learned of other phone records that could be potentially damaging for Tonya Harding. Now, early on the morning of January 6th, just hours before the assault on Kerrigan, Several phone calls were made from the Westin Hotel in Detroit on Tonya Harding's personal credit card. The calls went to her bodyguard, Sean Eckhart, in Portland. There was another call just 1 hour before the attack and 2 more to Eckhart shortly after the assault at Cobo. Rich?
Things just seem to be closing in on Tonya Harding, Scott. And you're hearing from reporters around the country, the New York Times, Sports Illustrated, all wanting to get your information for their stories.
It's big information, Rich, because for the first time there may be some outside information, if it's proven to be true, that would tie her into the plot.
Police are looking at phone records and an employee at the Westin Hotel that suggests Harding may not be telling all she knows. TV2's Scott Lewis, who first reported on the conspiracy, has the latest new developments. Tonight, Scott starts our team report with exclusive information that shows the trail from Portland to Westchester, Pennsylvania, to Detroit's Westin Hotel.
I had no prior knowledge of the planned assault on Nancy Kerrigan.
That's what Tonya Harding said yesterday, but new information uncovered today by TV2 raises questions about whether the skating champion is telling the truth. As everyone knows by now, Nancy Kerrigan was assaulted January 6th at Cobo Arena, but sources say the people involved first considered attacking Kerrigan at her room in the Westin Hotel. And we've learned Tonya Harding herself may have found out which room Kerrigan was staying in. Sources say she asked a hotel employee who gave her the room number in violation of hotel policy. And there's more, suggesting Tonya used a friend in Pennsylvania as an innocent dupe to find out when Kerrigan was practicing near Boston. TV2 has obtained phone records showing numerous calls between the Harding home in Portland and this home in Westchester, Pennsylvania. The Pennsylvania home belongs to Vera Morano, a reporter for Skating World magazine. The calls were made in late December while Nancy Kerrigan was practicing at Tony Kent Arena near Boston. Investigators say the conspirators also tried to hit Kerrigan there, and they believe that Morano, in the phone conversations, may have unwittingly given Harding information about Kerrigan's practice schedule. But a skating coach who knows both women says the calls might have been innocent.
I guess her only involvement with Tonya is possibly she was setting up an interview with her at some point, and somewhere down the line maybe they had communication as to maybe she knew Nancy's schedule. You know, anything's possible. Anybody can get information in that kind of light.
Vera Morano had no comment when TV2 reached her by telephone, and she had nothing to say when a reporter from our sister station in Philadelphia went to her house.
What if we don't go away for 24 hours?
Late this afternoon, Eyewitness News learned of other phone records that could be potentially damaging for Tonya Harding. In the wee hours of the morning, January 6th, just hours before the assault on Nancy Kerrigan, several phone calls were made from the Westin Hotel on Tonya Harding's personal credit card. The calls went to her bodyguard, Sean Eckhart, in Portland. There was another call just 1 hour before the assault and 2 more to Eckhart shortly after the attack at Cobo. From Southfield, Scott Lewis, TV2 Eyewitness News.
There's another finger pointing in Tonya Harding's direction tonight. TV2 Eyewitness News has learned that a Westin Hotel employee has gone before the grand jury with new evidence on Saturday. Meanwhile, Harding's ex-husband is planning to go public with his story tomorrow. TV2's Scott Lewis joining us now with more on these latest twists. Scott?
Rich, Tonya Harding's ex-husband, Jeff Gillooly, hasn't said anything publicly since he was arrested on December 16th. But the silence will be broken tomorrow. Gillooly goes into court to formalize a deal with prosecutors. He testifies against Tonya to get a reduced charge. Then Gillooly will tell reporters his side of the story. Portland's assistant district attorney confirmed today that Jeff Gillooly will enter a plea tomorrow morning. He wouldn't say what plea, but sources say it's a guilty plea to racketeering, a 2-year offense. Meanwhile, the Oregonian newspaper is reporting details of Gillooly's confession. He reportedly told investigators that Harding was in on the plot from day one and approved the plan to attack Nancy Kerrigan. The newspaper says Gillooly approached Harding when she returned from a competition in Japan December 12th with a disappointing 4th place finish. Gillooly reportedly told her the judges ranked her unfairly and that she would never get a fair shake at the Nationals in Detroit. The report says Tonya Harding didn't object to the plot but doubted that her bodyguard, Sean Eckhart, could pull it off. The Oregonian says Gillooly told investigators that he, Tonya Harding, and Eckhart met on December 28th and agreed to pursue the plan. The same day, Harding allegedly made calls to Boston to get Nancy Kerrigan's practice schedule at the Tony Kent Arena. In his confession, reports say, Gillooly also confirms what TV2 first reported on Friday. Tonya Harding obtained Nancy Kerrigan's room number at the Westin Hotel, where Shane Stant planned to hit her and tie her up with duct tape. TV2 has learned that the Westin Hotel clerk who gave Harding Kerrigan's room number testified before the grand jury in Portland on Saturday. That, along with Galluli's testimony, could give authorities enough evidence to charge Harding in the conspiracy. In Lillehammer, Norway tonight, an official of the U.S. Olympic Committee submitted the names of the American figure skating team. As expected, both Nancy Kerrigan and Tonya Harding are on the team. But Harding could still be dumped as late as February 21st, 2 days before the figure skating competition. If Tonya is feeling the heat, she doesn't show it. Yesterday, she appeared carefree in Portland, tossing a Nerf football around with friends. It promises to be an interesting day tomorrow. If you want to follow what happens, Galluli will go into court at 2:30 tomorrow afternoon Detroit time. 2.5 hours later at 5 o'clock, either Galluli or his attorney, we're not sure which, maybe both, will have a news conference.
But today's biggest developments weren't in court. They were at a news conference. Galluli's attorney went public with his client's version of how the attack was planned and executed, and how Tonya Harding herself played a major role. TV2's Scott Lewis has documented information on this story almost every single day since the attack here in Detroit, and he joins us now with more on the story, the very latest, in fact.
Catherine, Jeff Galluli's attorney says he's seen and heard enough now. Enough to be certain that Tonya Harding will be charged, enough to conclude that she doesn't belong on the U.S. Olympic team. We now have two versions of the truth, one in great detail, the other short and evasive. Jeff Galluli's version, as told by his attorney, begins in mid-December. Tonya Harding returns from a disappointing finish in Japan. She and Galluli blame it on politics and sense the skating establishment is pushing Nancy Kerrigan. Harding's bodyguard suggests maybe they should do something to Kerrigan.
He had the original thought, but the plot was hatched by Jeff and Tonya after that, with Sean Eckert's help.
Hovitt says the plan to hit Kerrigan on the right knee was finalized on December 28th during a meeting between Galluli, Harding, and Eckert. He says Harding gave the go-ahead on the way home from the meeting.
Well, as I understand the quote, it's okay, let's go for it, or okay, let's do it.
That same night, Hovitt claims Jeff Galluli gave Eckhart $2,000, and a short time later, Shane Stant went to Boston to carry out the hit.
And Tonya wanted it to happen in a bar on December 31st. Nancy Kerrigan would be assaulted in a bar on New Year's Eve, and in addition to being hurt, there might be a scandal surrounding her activities that evening.
When it didn't happen, Hovitt claims Harding got mad, and she thought she was being scammed.
She complained that no one seemed to be able to do this thing for her, and demanded her $2,000 back from Eckert.
Hovitt also confirms what TV2 first reported last Friday, that Tonya Harding called a skating writer named Vera Morano in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Hovitt says she asked Morano where Kerrigan lived.
She also wanted to know where Nancy Kerrigan skated, and it was Vera Morano that provided her the information that she skated at the Tony Kent Arena. That information was brought to the initial meeting the morning of the 28th.
Galluli's version also backs up other information uncovered last week by TV2. He says Harding asked a Westin Hotel employee for Kerrigan's room number, and they planned to do a burglary.
Yeah, the burglary incident refers to a plan to enter Nancy Kerrigan's motel room, assault her there, and tie her up.
Tonya Harding's version is that she was not part of the conspiracy and found out days after the attack that people close to her might be involved. Her attorney won't deal with any specifics of Galluli's allegations, pointing out that there is no formal accusation at this point.
If there is, she intends to respond in a court of law, not the court of, or the arena of public opinion, which, as we have seen today, is easily manipulated and frequently uninformed.
It's not just Galluli's attorney talking about those phone calls to Vera Morano. TV2 obtained official FBI documents today with the words of Morano herself. She told the FBI Harding called shortly after Christmas. She says Harding asked where Nancy Kerrigan practiced and whether Kerrigan owned property in Cape Cod. Now, Morano says Harding told her she needed that information to settle a bet. Catherine?
You know, Scott, there has been so much speculation involving this case, new things every day. Do you have any idea or heard anything at all about when police could possibly act on her?
Well, that's the big question tonight, and especially big considering what Galluli's attorney said. If they have all this information, he says they have a paper trail, they have everything they need, then why don't they charge her? It'll be interesting to see what happens in Portland in the next few days. I would think pretty soon they're going to have to move on this. They're going to have to do something. But the attorney said there are also others that could be implicated.
Okay, well, I know you'll be right on top of it.
Right.
Thanks, Scott.